Hello, hello. We are still waiting on Andrew to hop on in, but we are going to be getting started here shortly. Ah, he's here and I
Testing.
can't
This is
hear.
Andrew
There he
Brown.
is.
There we go. Now I have audio levels.
All right.
Oh, my
Waiting
light's not on.
on
1 second.
the delay to show up on YouTube side. There you are. Okay, you are live on YouTube now.
There we go. Nice and white.
All right, I've sent out the email. I'm going to announce to everybody.
My light always makes me super white. I have to work on that, but that's the setup I have today.
It's all good. Grab this link. Wait on more people to come on in. I'm seeing a few more trickling in now.
Remember, I removed an email. Now I tried to get rid of a bunch of old domains that was on Rep 53, and they're like, these are renewed. I'm like, what?
I just had mine renewed. LinuxSuperhero.com. I used it at Linux Academy 7, 8 years ago and haven't used it since, but I guess I'm just going to pay $30 a year for it for the rest of my life.
I had a domain called Freedom 2020, and it was supposed to be like, this is the year, everybody. 2020, you're all gonna get like, it's gonna be the good year. COVID hit like hard, wrecked that whole domain, and so I was just like, time to get rid of freedom2020.me.
Oh, if it was .com, you should have definitely squatted on that, but otherwise, yeah. All right, how many people do we have now? Oh, not too many, so we'll wait a little bit longer, I guess, and chat about expired domains and whatnot until a few more people trickle in.
Well, we can just start because it's not like they can't go back and watch it, and we have to go through slides anyway.
I guess you're right. Let me situate everything. That will be my way of letting a few more people hop in by getting my tabs in order because I have way too many that are up. I don't need my email. Let's see.
I think the new wood's better, but we'll see. My set's not done, of course, but
You were a little bit quiet there. Were you talking to me or off?
yeah, I was talking to you. I told you I got new wood back here.
Oh yeah, yeah. It does look a little cleaner.
It's not done, but need nautical knots and things like that.
All right, yeah, it looks like people are pouring in now, looking pretty good. So we'll get started here in just a second. I'll go ahead and share the old screen, and we're not going to spend nearly as much time in slides this time around. We'll actually get some stuff done. So for those of you joining in now, if you have set up your code space, go ahead and open that if you'd like to try to follow along. Otherwise, of course, this will be recorded and you'll be able to hop in and do it later if you just want to take notes and focus. There we go. No fancy animations there. It's just all at once. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the GitOps for Terraform or IAC or whatever you want to say live show with me, Derek Morgan, and Andrew Brown. We are going to actually build some stuff today. This is the official lecture, the official live show. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. It will be recorded and provided within the course resources. So, Andrew, how are you feeling today? You good? You ready?
Terrible. My voice is just completely worn, but you know, I'll be active in the chat here, and I'll be chiming in when I think necessary. But gotta rest my voice as best I can.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I will leave you alone for the most part, but of course, if you see anything that I need to cover or something I missed, of course, just chime in. Everybody loves to hear your beautiful angelic voice. All right, so here we are. If you remember last time, we got everything kind of set up. We explained kind of what we're going through. And this is a visual of what we're going to build overall. I'm not going to dive into it all at once, but basically you've all seen that big, nice figure 8 for DevOps. Well, it's somewhat similar for GitOps. We're basically following a typical DevOps pipeline, but a few things have kind of been rearranged a little bit since this is infrastructure, not code. So there are different types of dependencies and different types of snags and issues that you may hit. So let's take a little bit of a look at what we're going to be building. So first up, what you're going to be doing is designing and coding, obviously. Got a little Matrix reference here. I keep forgetting that that is 24 years old, just to remind some of you. If you did buy this on DVD, you might want to go re-up on your back pain pills and whatever else. So we're going to kind of go through and define requirements, but in this case, it's already been done for us. We're going to actually get code that's already been created. So the architecture requirements, that's not going to be the big deal here. That's not what we're focusing on. If you want to learn about designing Terraform and architecture, Andrew and I both have some great courses that will cover that. Same with writing IAC, but this is one I wanted to call out, Terraform FMT. It's a fantastic little command that not everybody knows. This is something you'll want to run before you push your code to the repository. This is going to kind of correct any weird spaces and stuff like that. And one of the really big reasons you're going to want to run this is because this is something you'll also want to run in your pipeline. So if you run Terraform format in your pipeline and it fails, it's going to fail the whole pipeline. So make sure you run this before you kick things off. So let's talk a little bit about the validation. You've got several tools within Terraform. You've got variable validation. You've got type checking, which can be provided in the variables. You've got pre and post conditions. This is a really cool feature that we're going to take a look at as well. And assertions is a nice new feature as well. Now let's talk about pre-commit hooks a little bit. Many of you have probably heard of pre-commit hooks. For those of you who haven't, basically what these are doing is they're going to run automatically to run certain things before you commit to your repository. So the great thing about the pre-commit hooks is this will run your Terraform format, your Terraform validate. It can run tflint. It can run all of the tools you need before you push to the repository to ensure that you're not wasting your pipeline minutes. So these are really useful, but you ask, why would you do this twice? Why would you run pre-commit hooks and then have all of these steps within your pipeline? Well, as Ron Burgundy says here, I don't believe you. It's hard to ensure that someone has run these pre-commit hooks. So you're going to want to check them in the pipeline. Terraform validate, once again, is a command I recommend. All right, we're about to get to the code repository here because the slides are boring and I don't have enough room to show both. And as Andrew calls them, intentional code traps will be alive and well. So there are going to be some things in this code that may or may not work. Please keep that in mind. They may not work, and most of them are intentional. Some of them may have just been typos. It happens.
Sorry, so just going to chime in there very quickly.
Yep.
So understand that there are intentional traps here, just to make sure that if there is instructional content here today, that we're not following it one-to-one, and so that you have an opportunity to have some troubleshooting there. If people are struggling quite a bit with these, we will unveil them at some point. in the Discord to keep you unblocked for those who are really struggling. But again, this is the purpose, is to get you thinking and working around problems.
Yep, exactly. So this is not going to be a spoon-fed boot camp, basically, is what we're saying. In the real world, you're going to encounter issues. Not everybody's perfect. You are going to make mistakes, and your coworkers are going to make mistakes. So we want to make sure that we kind of cover that. And we're not going to dive too deep into that, but there are things that you're going to want to do. So here is the base repo that we're going to be working with. It's got some CloudFormation, first of all. Now, this CloudFormation, apparently I am not logged in or something. There we go. CFN, had to refresh the page. It is a CFN directory here. So you've got backend resources, and I've also provided you the OIDC role script. Now, the backend resources is pretty simple here. All this is going to do is deploy your S3 and your DynamoDB for locking. Now, for this, the S3 bucket is going to store your state, and DynamoDB is going to lock that state if there's an operation being run on it. So why is this important? If you are running a pipeline, or multiple people are running a pipeline, if there is a plan or apply being run and that state is being accessed, then this is going to prevent someone else from overriding the state while you are accessing the state. This ensures that everything stays consistent. So that's why we have an S3 bucket and a DynamoDB table. And yeah, Zingy, I know S3 locking, I just saw that, might be coming soon. We had a long discussion about it last night, and honestly, I think it solves a few problems because attack surfaces are attack surfaces. But overall, I don't think it's going to solve anything that is going to make this boot camp much different. But it is cool that eventually you won't need this DynamoDB table if this new change is accepted, which again will improve your attack surface. All right, so this is your backend resources. Then we've got the OIDC role.
Okay,
Go
Derek?
ahead. Yep.
I was wondering, people kept saying only seeing slide, but I thought you were still doing slides because that's all I see. But if you are showing code, nobody can see it.
God. I totally told it to share the screen. I don't know why it's not. Okay.
We'll give Derek here a moment here to move it over here.
Yeah, thanks for catching that.
Normally when I do my boot camps, we have Baco's there controlling all these things, and basically Derek is multitasking for both.
Yeah, it's not easy. All right. Yeah, it says screen.
Well, I'll give it a moment.
Fun.
It's not a big deal.
Yep.
If there is a repo link, we might want to drop it also there in the YouTube.
Yep, I'm going to. All right. Okay, should work much better this time. I am sorry, everybody. Head back to the backend resources here. So this is it. Again, it's CloudFormation, very simple S3 bucket, and DynamoDB. Now, to kind of head off the questions that I know probably are also there. Why am I using CloudFormation?
Also, just bump up the font.
Yep.
Bump. And we're good. Okay, great. So just to get settled here, it looks like we're in the GitOps minicamp repo. If we go to the top here, so people can see the link. So my question is, are people cloning this, or are they forking this, or is it a template?
They're going to clone it, and we're going to do that here live here shortly.
Great.
Yep.
So
and I'll go ahead and post that to the GitOps minicamp public right now.
And I'm going to follow along too. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the same spot as you. I'm going to grab it here. Is it going to go in the YouTube chat or just the Discord?
Put it in both. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, multitasking is not incredibly easy.
Sure. For everyone that is here, can you give us a thumbs up +1 if you have the repo open and cloned? So you can find it on GitHub and you have it cloned, so you're at the starting point with us. We'll give everyone just a moment there to +1 here. I myself looking for it. I'm going to make my way into our Discord and see if I can find it. I got a lot of Discords. But we'll go here down to the boot camp. And there it is. Cool. And I'm pulled up, so I'm ready. I'm going to take a look here. So I'm going to go ahead. Like for ours, we'll normally do like a template. It's not a big deal if it's a clone here, but I guess by that I'm going to fork this. I'm going to go ahead and hit the fork button myself. And I have it open now. Hey Derek, have you ever used GitHub.dev?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
It looks like you're using it right there. So everybody, if you can go back for just a second, Derek, just close out the tab to the one. We'll show everyone how to open this. But if you go back to just the main repo of the GitHub, right here. So everybody, if you're on this page, so if everyone's cloned, I'm gonna say everyone's cloned. We got a +1 here. I keep saying the word clone. I should just say fork. So in the top right corner, can you just hover where the fork button is, Derek, so people can see where it is? So all you're doing is you're just clicking that button to fork it, all right? And so that gives you a +1, right? And so when everybody has it forked, the next thing we want to do is we want to review the code. And a really easy way to do that, we don't even have to open up code spaces or Git pod because we don't have to have any compute right now. Just hit period on your keyboard when you're on this page. So Derek, if you hit period, what that's going to do is it's going to open this whole this repo up in github.dev. And so this costs no money. And it gives you kind of a coding experience that we can look in. So I want to get a +2 if everybody has github.dev open. So they pressed period on that, and we're all reviewing this together. And now we also have dark mode. If you don't have that theme, Derek, could you show them how to change it in the settings wheel in the bottom left corner, or however you like to change it? I only know the one way. But if you want to change the theme, you can go to your color themes and change it to dark mode. It's up to you, whatever you find that's easy to read. But yeah, let's go back and look at that code and just make it real big here for everybody here in github.dev.
You're gonna have to remind me the shortcut. Is it
I'm on
plus?
I'm always confused because I have different keyboards, but you got it. There was something plus something. Control plus.
Control Shift plus.
Alt plus.
Oh,
I'm
Control
between
plus,
a Mac
yeah.
Windows keyboard, and then I have a Mac keyboard on a Windows machine, so I couldn't tell you what it is anymore. It's all muscle memory now, but and so
I'm actually working right here within my code space already, which should be created.
Okay. So well, just again, are we just reviewing files right now?
Oh, we're about to clone it. I was just reviewing it real quick, and then we're gonna clone it in.
Okay. Well, let's just review in github.dev, and then we can switch back over to code spaces here.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the one big question that people probably could be having right now is, why am I using CloudFormation in a Terraform course? Everybody might be losing their minds and mad at me. I've done several surveys, and people like to do things really difficultly. And there's a great way to do this. If you want to create your state resources, you can write them in Terraform. You can deploy your resources. You can then have a script that moves your state into the new resource, into the new S3 bucket. And you can do all of this if you want. Me personally, I hate it. I think that might be the most ridiculous way I've ever heard to avoid a very easy solution, which is just to use CloudFormation and make it work. It's so fast. You can do it right here through, you can do it right through the CLI if you want. You can do it through the console. You can do it through the CLI. You can do it through whatever you need. It's very easy to do, and you've always got a source of truth here. Now, the other cool thing, which I don't have quite set up, is there is Git sync as well. So if you'd like to go...
So when I was refreshing my Solution Architect Associate, the developer, I could not get Git sync to work to save my life. And so
it's the worst.
I was like, it sounds very promising, but I just could not get it to work. It was the only thing that I out of all CloudFormation that gave me a huge struggle here. So I guess my question is, So before we start building our pipeline, do we need to set this up first, or is it something that is a task for later, or is it what's the thoughts here for the managing the state via AWS with the CloudFormation? Is this for later? Is it a later task?
I think we're going to do it later. I was kind of gauging how long this call was going to be, and I think we've got a lot to cover. So we're probably going to do this later, and what we're going to do whenever we set up our Terraform resources is just comment out the instance that we're going to deploy.
Okay.
So we're going to deploy something very simple. That way we don't have to quite go through all of this because it may take a little bit of time for everybody to get caught up. So I'll release a video to make sure that you know how to do this.
All right. And just to reinforce everyone here, the reason we're talking about the state file management is at some point the state file has to be managed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just going to be free on AWS. We could have done Terraform Cloud. We could have done a bunch of other ones as we mentioned in the last stream, but this one will just be cost effective. So are we ready to jump into code?
We are just about to. I wanted to cover one more
Okay.
thing here,
Sure.
the OIDC role. So this is going to be a way that you can authenticate. Now you can authenticate using this, which is something that will take a little more time to set up. We're going to hard code credentials today to make things easy and quick and get us right to the work. But overall, I would strongly recommend you switch over to this method here. You'll be creating a role that your GitHub action will actually assume, and that will allow it to create the resources that it needs to create. And then once the session is over, those keys are gone, which means that it can't be reused, it can't break things. So a couple things here, you'll need to pass in the repo name. And then you'll also look down here, basically what it's doing in this case is giving every repo access to this role. You may want to make this a little more specific. You can also specify branches and several other things here, but I will make sure that that gets covered for you. All right, yeah, let's take a look at the Terraform code real quick. All right, so you're going to be given a pretty basic EC2 deployment, which is going to deploy Grafana, which is a really, really, really nice like charting and monitoring software. If you haven't used it, I strongly recommend it. It's pretty much required nowadays.
Could you pull up like a screenshot
Sure.
to show people what Grafana looks like?
Yep.
It's really impressive. I always think Grafana is Prometheus, but it's not.
Right. Oh wow, they've released so much stuff. There we go. Okay.
So like if you're trying to look real cool in DevOps, if you can launch one of these, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say most of the like Kubernetes front ends, like Rancher and stuff like that, all use Grafana. A lot of the Kubernetes monitoring you're going to find uses Grafana. And there's also an AWS hosted Grafana. Just be careful, it gets really expensive really fast.
It's also not easy to set up.
No, it's miserable. It's the worst.
It's strange that there's services that are fully managed that are supposed to be easy to set up, and then they're harder than the original setup. But I imagine at scale that maybe the value's there, but I couldn't tell you.
I think it's for authentication. As everything in this world, authentication is where it matters at scale. So yeah, so we're going to be installing pretty quick like user data script here. This is old school deployments, nothing fancy. We don't want to get too bogged down in the Terraform code here. We've got some variables.tf. You might notice these are very bare. That may or may not be on purpose. You may need to add extra information here to ensure that the right.
So Derek, why is the extension .tfpl? I've never seen that extension before.
TFTPL, that's a Terraform template.
Okay, is that newer or has that been around a long time or?
It's been around for a while. I would say it's kind of new, but not very new. I think it may have shown up just before or just after Terraform 1.0. I can't remember.
Okay, so I guess my question is like, why would I want to use one of these? Like, does it give me some kind of markdown language to make it easier to work with templates that is different from HCL? Is it just an extension?
Just for linting.
Pardon?
Just for linting. That's it. You could name this anything you want and reference it however you want. because basically all that's going on is I'm referencing that user data script right here using a file function. So
Okay.
you could name this anything you want, but the Terraform official linters won't pick it up if you list it as something else. But since this is TFTPL, it's actually picking that up. It looks like it's pulling it as bash, but this is basically just what I've read in the docs, that this is the standard. So,
Okay. Cool.
yep. All right, cool. So everything else here, you will see like the providers are somewhat bare. We've got versions.tf here, extremely bare. So some of this information is going to need to be filled out to be a complete Terraform deployment. You can't just leave this stuff without versions being explicitly set. You might have to set some explicit provider details, or maybe you won't. Variables might need some types, descriptions, things like that, because tflint is nasty. It will pick up all sorts of problems. And then as far as main.tf goes, everything's pretty straightforward. We're not going to dive too deep into here, but do keep in mind you've got some areas that could be improved, such as how do we know we're getting the right AMI for the right region? Or how do we know that we're specifying the proper AWS instance? Things like that. So those are some of the things we're going to expect to see that you have improved. All right, so let's start building some stuff. I think we kind of covered this. I am tired of just lecturing. Let's actually get to work on some things. So first up, you should have created the code spaces, which mine has now stopped. Going to restart that. Go ahead and get into your code space. And we'll give everybody a little bit of time there to do so.
I didn't see how you set that up. What did you do to set yours up when you created it there?
My code space.
Yeah.
You just go to code here, and there is a video in the prereqs, of course. But you'll go to code spaces, and then you'll just create one.
So
right
for those of you yet to create theirs, you should see a really big green button that says create code space on main. I think that there's different sizes of code. I should know. I made a course on it. There's different sizes of it, but if you press it, you should be pretty much in good shape. For those who are used to using Gitpod, code spaces is a bit different, where it's more like a virtual machine, and it's a bit more persistent. So you do have to physically delete out the instance if you want to completely clear it out, but you can stop it to save spam when you're not utilizing it, and will time out. Actually, times out much better than Gitpod, but I do find it a bit slower, but it's fine for what we're doing here. And then one other key difference between Gitpod and Codespaces is that Codespaces, because it's with GitHub, it's tied with Microsoft, and so it uses the official marketplace for VS Code extensions. So if you've ever had extensions you can't get in Gitpod, it's because the marketplace of VS Code is proprietary, and so there's an alternate one called VSX Open, and that's what Gitpod uses. And so sometimes when you're working with Microsoft or Azure or GitHub, their plugins are much easier in GitHub code spaces, even though I would prefer to use Gitpod. But anyway, we'll continue on here. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, so speaking of extensions, one of the ones I've just been using here is this Terraform extension here by Anton Kulikov. The official one historically has not been good. I've heard it might be better, but I've just had this one installed by default for so long that I'm using it. You may notice when using the new features such as Terraform Assert, or the check blocks rather, you may notice there's a lot of red text. This is known. Basically, this plugin just hasn't been updated yet. I've also got the AWS toolkit installed, but honestly, I haven't really been bothering with deploying to AWS from here, so not a big deal. All right, so let's head back over, and I'm going to go ahead and clone that repository. Let's see. And again, this is the 2024-TF here. Just going to copy that and git clone. Just like so. And then to clean things up, since we're not doing anything with that repository, is I'm just going to drag this stuff out. This is somewhat optional, but it will make things easier in the future.
Sorry, Derek. So there's a couple things that we're supposed to have installed, right? We're supposed to have Terraform and AWS CLI. Is that correct?
Just Terraform is required. AWS CLI is fine, but Terraform's all that's actually required in your code space.
So we get a +3 everybody if everybody has the Terraform CLI installed. If anyone's struggling, just tell us. But I just want to see +3s here before you proceed. Or if you don't, give me a -3. Because worst case, I can go bring a script over from one of my repos if need be here. Let's give another moment here. Okay, so couple -3s. So yeah, Derek can continue on here. I'm gonna go try to find a script for people to simplify it for them as they're watching here. Okay.
All right, we got a couple steps here before we get to anything Terraform anyway. We've actually got several, so we've got a little bit of time. One thing I want to point out, and I have mentioned this in previous lessons and prereqs and things like that, but this is something that I know people are going to get hit with. Terraform.tf-vars historically has been a place where people have stored secrets. And when I say historically, I mean a long time ago. People really do not store very sensitive information in TF-vars anymore. That should go to Vault. That should go to GitHub secrets. That should go somewhere else. It should never be in a text file. So generally speaking, Terraform.tf-vars is just a place where we will set a definition for our variables. Now you'll notice here that it is grayed out. When a file is grayed out here in code spaces or VS Code, that means it's being ignored. So in our case, we've defined a region and an instance type, but this file is not going to be committed to our repository, so that's a problem. We're not going to have these definitions there. So head into the .gitignore if you have set one already. If not, you can set one that uses the Terraform template. And make sure, one of these days I'll get it right. Make sure that TF-vars is commented out or just deleted. Either way is fine. But you want to make sure that TF-vars is not being ignored because that is now an important file that we're going to be committing to our repository to define our stuff. So do make sure that is there. Now, another thing, you may also notice that gitignore is not showing up. This is something else I have covered, but I want to make sure I cover again. This is extremely important because the workflows are located also in a dot file. You need to make sure that we are seeing these types of hidden files. So to do that, you can click on this little hamburger icon here, go to File, Preferences, Settings, and type files.exclude. And you'll see this here show up. And at the bottom, you would have seen probably this here, I believe. Something like that. Make sure that that is deleted. We want to make sure that our .gitignore and any other dot files is being shown. So do make sure that you've got that. All right. I will pause real quick for any questions that anybody might have on this. Andrew, you got anything? How's the chat looking?
I don't know. I'm making this bash script file here. But I'll check in just a moment, and then I'll be asking, "What did we just do?" I'll be getting caught up myself here.
Okay.
But anyway, if everyone's following along, let's get a +4 here in the crowd. Just or if you're really behind, like me, just give it -4, okay? And we'll watch for those streaming in here.
Awesome. Yep, I'm keeping an eye on it now. Starting out well. All right, Ultraman. Yep. The GitHub GitHub CLI will need to be installed for any Gitpod users out there. It is already installed for me, so we're not going to go through that installation.
The script I'm going to have here will work for either Codespaces or Gitpod. So I'll drop it here in a moment and on my fork. And if anybody is not using Codespaces, they can just run it and they'll be in good shape as well.
Okay. Perfect. So what I'm going to do real quick, just to make sure that everything is good to go, is I'm just going to commit this to my existing repository that's there. So feel free to use the source control stuff here, or you can just git add, git commit, git push. Either way is perfectly fine. Git add, git commit, -m, initial code, git push, origin main. There we go. And everything is here. All right, so it looks like Andrew has posted a bash script to the public GitOps minicamp public channel in Discord.
So what did I miss while I was gone? What do I have to do, Derek?
Everything was in the prereqs that I've covered. I've just recovered it to make sure that we are good to go. One of them is to make sure that your tf-vars file here is not in your gitignore. As you can see here, I've got it commented out. If you're using a default Terraform gitignore, then this is automatically there, but that's kind of an antiquated practice because this is how we define variables now. So we'll go ahead and comment that out. And then the other thing was to make sure that your dot files are excluded from the files.exclude list, which again is file, preferences, settings, and there are shortcuts for this also. Files.exclude. And just make sure that your .star files are not added down here.
Well, it looks like I'm all good.
All right, awesome.
Do we have to give a specific name to our repo, or is it 2024? You know, I would just suggest to try to stick with the name that was in the prereq because, you know, if Derek has to go look up it later and you have a different name, it might be problematic. If a auto grader is introduced to help automate the role, and we need to rely on that consistent name, that's going to be an issue. So take the time and rename it to the original one because you can rename the repo if you happen to change it. Okay.
All right. So let's go ahead and see if we can get us a nice little pipeline to start with. So we've got our code. We've got everything here. Now what you're going to need.
Sorry, Derek, yep. Do we have our beer?
Oh, I wish. I could really use one. I do have actual coffee without bourbon in it.
I just have a Google Innovators Cloud Cup that is always empty and I never use.
This is a mug that actually is from a company that sells laboratory rats. Don't ask me how I got it. I have never been affiliated with that company.
I was gonna say, are they any good?
I couldn't tell you. They're probably good fried, but I'm not sure.
Derek, what are you having for Thanksgiving? Oh, sorry. So for those who don't know, the Canadian Thanksgiving, which is coming up this Monday. It's very similar to the American Thanksgiving, except our turkeys go instead of saying gobble gobble, they go a. I don't know, but you know what? Actually, I've always wanted to go to the U.S. to have an American Thanksgiving because I hear that it is taken more seriously and more effort is put into it, and so I would love to one day experience an American Thanksgiving.
I hope you're ready to eat. That's all I can say. It is pretty serious. All right, so what we're going to do here first is actually we don't even need to authenticate. We don't need to do anything yet. Let's actually keep things simple and just start getting things set up. There we go. So what I'm going to do first is create a new folder. Oops. Which needs to be in the root. Make sure you are in the root here. That's going to be .github/workflows. Is that correct, Andrew? Did I nail it this time? Didn't we argue about this last time?
Yes.
I think I got it right. So within this right here, we'll create a file. We'll just call it terraform.yml. And then you might have this little, do you want to install the recommended GitHub Actions extension? I'm going to try installing it again. It is really useful when it works. Sometimes it just completely breaks and starts popping up error messages nonstop. So if that happens, you just have to tell it to shut up. But I'm going to go ahead and install this because it can be incredibly useful for catching all sorts of things.
What are we calling our workflow file there? Oh, just Terraform?
Terraform.yml. Yep.
Okay.
And we'll change all of that and optimize things as we go. But we just want to get the basics of how to get this thing right. We just want to see how things deploy and kind of move from there. All right. And I'm going to slowly walk over to a couple of places. Here we go. All right. So the great thing about GitHub Actions overall is you're not going to be just scripting bash. You're not going to be scripting stuff from scratch. Now you can just straight up curl any binary you want. You can run anything you want, but overall, everything we're going to be using for the most part has an action already created by the company that sponsors that software. So that makes life a lot easier. Now here's what we've got is the setup Terraform action, which handles installing Terraform, doing any authentication, and handling anything else we need to run our Terraform commands. Now I'm going to be honest, there's kind of a lot of stuff here. It's really not bad, but there's a lot, and I kind of want to start a little bit simpler. So what I've gone to is actually a GitHub Actions official deployment starter repo, which just has terraform.yml right here. And as you can see, there is a lot less to deal with. It's very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and post that to the chat and also post that into Discord. Right there. And into Discord. And yes, I'll be accepting any collaboration invites and everything once things get done here. And we'll make sure that everybody gets graded.
So here's a question I have is that we have this one from a trusted source that we know is good. And by the way, this is how I, like when we do the other boot camps, I will go and I will look for pieces and parts of code, not always writing things by hand, but knowing that I generally have enough domain knowledge to know if it looks good and the source of the information. But could we use Gen AI to generate this out? And how good would it work? And also, like, Derek, what's your go-to AI tool for generating out these things?
For GitHub Actions workflows, to be honest, most of it has not been great. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And this is, again, for the workflows. The code itself actually isn't bad, but the workflows change so often. You can see here, Well, you probably can't see squat, but
Mm.
actions checkout v4. Like a lot of times when I go and generate something with AI, with ChatGPT or whatever, this will be like v2 or v1 or whatever, and you're going to encounter errors with that. So that's,
Could
I think,
we do a quick try and I'm just curious, like if we did it and we could just say, oh, that looks good or it looks awful, because I'm sure like there's people in
yeah,
the crowd going, I wonder if I can use ChatGPT, Anthropic Cloud, Minstrel, um,
yep.
any of
Let
the
me
other ones.
let me check my ChatGPT and make sure I haven't searched for anything silly. Oh, there's some Spider-Man No Way Home references. Oh, I remember what I was doing there. I was trying to check to make sure there were no prerequisites to watch the movie so that I could show it to someone. Um,
Mine are like, how do I look like an expert when I'm not an expert? I'm just kidding, but
you can
um,
close the sidebar, so we're good. Okay. So let's say write a basic Terraform deployment GitHub
and just so you know,
actions
we don't
workflow.
see it right now, so I'm assuming you're doing off screen. You're going to bring it on screen here in a moment.
I'm actually on another.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
told
So,
it to do the whole screen, but I guess it doesn't listen. It's actually in a different browser window, and I don't know if I can show it. So I will. I'll find a way to make that happen real quick in just a second. Because I'm not authenticated in this account. I'm authenticated in a different account.
I was telling Derek earlier today that because I've been trying to build out Amazon Bedrock agents because I'm doing this hackathon, but then I'm also doing it because I'm doing in-person training events and etc. And so I was trying to use Amazon Developer Queue to generate out good cloud formation, and it just could not do it. So there has to be like specialized AI. And I just wish there were more startups that were making specialized infrastructure as a code AI tools.
Yep.
Like if there was one for CloudFormation, I'd use it in an instant if it was like priced well and it was up to date. So hopefully there are some startups out there that are thinking about those kind of solutions because I would like them.
Yep.
But
Yeah, there's definitely one. One of our sponsors, StackPack, is doing one for Terraform. I don't know how big they've gotten into GitHub Actions yet, but they have definitely covered Terraform and do a really good job. And we'll definitely have them on to answer some questions and kind of cover that stuff. What do you know? I think it might be proving me right. So this here is from ChatGPT 4.0. So let's see, actions checkout v3, v2. Let's go ahead.
And so I think, and the challenge here is that ChatGPT, sometimes it looks like it's really up to date, but the thing is that it is fixed to a particular version, right? Or like a time period. So it could be last year or 6 months ago. And then it's also the composition of the information that's been trained on. And so it can get confused. I can still not generate out, at least with generic AI assisted power tools, good Terraform code for Google Cloud Platform. I just can't get it because they don't have enough data out there to make good ones. And I think a lot of the good data is hidden behind Skill Boost. That's Google's learning platform. They should really put all their content out so that you could make good things. Unless Gemini could do it, and Gemini doesn't even make good Terraform Google Cloud code. But yeah, I just wanted to do a comparison to show folks. And again, it's not that it wouldn't work with version 3. It's just like you want to stay up to date and you want to know why. Like if you knew what versions they were and you were like, yeah, I know it's not version 4. I'm comfortable with version 3. I don't mind. But that's a consideration there. It could be more of an issue with Terraform. But what's interesting here,
it can be. I actually have read a lot of issues with. So they sometimes will change like authentication methods and security methods and things like that. And sometimes these like straight up will not work. There will be a major issue. And in this case, actually, both of them are a little bit wrong. If we go to the
well, I was gonna say, why is the other one say Terraform version 1? Like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I was just like, is that the wrong thing?
It's just older, hasn't been updated. Well,
Okay.
wait. Looks like somebody's working on it. At least for they're working on checkout, but they haven't updated the Terraform one yet. So that's
and for our students here, like these discrepancies are perfect things to document. Saying, like when you see the source code being like, yeah, I encountered this version, that version, and I chose to go with this one because it's older and I know there's a newer one. So that would be something you'd want to be putting in your technical documentation. Because again, remember, just thinking about people that are going to be taking this on, or maybe you look in the future, you forgot why you did it a certain way. Having that contextual information of your thought process when you're working through that is really important. But anyway, yep, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. In this case, we actually, both of them are wrong. So if you head
Or
to
they're both a little bit right.
they're both a little bit old. If you go to the official setup Terraform, you'll see here, they're actually on V3.
So we need to make a little cocktail here, mix them together.
Yes, I can do math. Love it. Yeah, so GitHub, Terraform init. Terraform init looks good. This one here is actually using your format plan. This one just goes straight to plan. Format can be a pain. If you forget to format before you run, this will fail the whole thing. So do keep that in mind. Terraform apply. Looks like that is all the same for the most part. So GenAI actually did a pretty good job with this simple one. It's not perfect, but it did a pretty great job, I will say. So again, feel free to use GenAI, but if you do just regurgitate it, I'm probably going to catch it. I'm going to look for stuff like this, Terraform version 1.5. Yeah, that's not the case here.
I'm just curious for those that are in like watching right now, how many people went through my GitHub Actions course enough to understand like what these things are. So I'm gonna get an assessment here. I'm gonna give a scale like how well do you know GitHub Actions coming in here today, like between 1 and 10.
All right, waiting on that YouTube delay here. Just trying to fill the dead air.
You can always dance. And okay, so we got so half. So people have just enough knowledge coming in here. Okay,
Yeah.
and some lower ones because I'm looking at this going, do people know what these actions are, what they carry through?
Yep. And we're
Yep.
about to go step by step through this and kind of cover, what
Yep.
exactly we're looking at.
Yeah, and if you're like at a 510, 510, 610, then you're in a good spot. You don't need to be
Yep.
10 out of 10 here, but if there's more clarity, it'll make sense as we go through here. But anyway, but yeah, if we can go back and I guess I need to get the pipeline too. I've just been kind of sitting here. And I'm just going to copy the one from the deployments. And I'm assuming if we go back to this one, I'm going to paste it in myself here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the top. And we have all this commented stuff out at the top. Do we want any of that? Or is that junk or good stuff? Or...
I'm going to cover it a little bit here, and then, yes, we'll delete it. As you can see here, they've got the documentation for setup Terraform here. And, just kind of explaining that this is fairly a watered down version. It's also telling you how to authenticate. If you decide to use Terraform Cloud to store your state, by all means, perfectly fine to do so. I just didn't want to cover that all here because it honestly just takes more time to get that going. But if you want to use another service to store your state, do it. Just don't use any of their other automation stuff because we want to make sure we're focused on GitHub Actions. But this is here explaining kind of that back-end stuff that you would do to authenticate to Terraform Cloud.
Yeah, so that's because we're going to use the AWS one. So for AWS, there might be something similar as a code block, but we're not configuring that right now. So right now, we're not configuring a backend. We're using whatever the default is, or does it default to Terraform Cloud?
Now. Yeah, we're going to stick to local now. And again, we're not going to deploy anything. I'm going to go in and comment out the stuff that actually is going to be an issue.
Do we have that set up yet in our main TF?
Not yet. We're about to.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, so now we head down. You can see here that it's getting the Terraform API token. This again comes from Terraform Cloud.
So like now that we've read it, could we get rid of all those comments just to kind of focus on the code? Like, do we need it to hang around or no?
My finger is on the trigger right now to scroll up and delete all
I deleted it. I just see like big blobs of comments and I can't keep track.
Yep.
I only know the comments I've made, so.
Yep, so here we go. We got a name we got Terraform, of course. This is the name of the deploy or the job itself, essentially the name of the workflow itself. And right now we've got on push to the default branch, which is fine. But you may want to modify this. This may not work for your workflow. You may want to prevent automatic pushes to the branch. You may want to ensure that these things only run on pull requests. Andrew, can you drop a little information on why they may not want to allow pushes to their default branch?
Oh yeah. So the main reason you don't want to enable, you don't want to push to main is because sometimes main is configured. Well, again, it depends on how it's configured, but if you have main set up, it's sometimes automated to automatically deploy. And so one reason why you might not want to push to main is so that you are setting up clear expectations in terms of the workflow of how things are going to get merged into main, as you want to keep main as pristine as possible. Is that what you're looking for, Derek? Or
Yeah, essentially that's perfect. And sorry, I know the voice.
well, there's
certain,
other reasons. There's other reasons why, right? And so I'm just saying, like, that's one of the reasons as to why you wouldn't want to push to main, right?
Yep. And one of the big ones too, again, one of the really big ones is you also don't want to allow other developers to screw up main. You want to make sure you force them into the process.
I think that if everyone's pushing to main, you'll end up with more conflicts, right?
Yeah.
And it'll just slow down development. But mostly it's just like, if everyone remembers the last boot camp where if you had a merge conflict, think of that 10 times. So when I used to work at Teambox, like 2009 or 2008, at the time, feature branching wasn't even a thing, and everyone just worked in main, and it was like, I was really good at rebase because you're using it every day. You'd be rebasing like and cherry picking commits. But you get good at it. It just was not a fun way to work.
Yeah, I'm terrible at rebase. I'm terrible at rebasing. I'd rather just delete the entire repository and just start from scratch. Obviously, I don't.
Derek, can you bring the font up a bit? It's still a little bit small, eh?
Is it?
Even for me, yeah. I would even go bigger. One more up.
I mean, there is a way to make this font larger without zooming in, but I cannot ever.
Oh, I can tell you how to do it. So if you go back to normal size, like I think it's like Command 0 or Apple or whatever the key is, controls, whatever you're using for the zoom modifier, just make it 0 and it'll go back to normal. You'll probably really want to do that. Is it back to normal, you think?
Oh, I'm back to 100%. I was saying I can actually.
So if you go down to settings. So go to your little cog in the bottom left corner. I got really good at this. Settings, and you can also do this in the command window as well. It's right there. Font size is the first thing in front of you. So if you bump it up to, like, say 28, that might be a good size. You'll also want to do the terminal. So if you go to the top to search settings, just type in terminal font. Yeah, and there it is, terminal size. So change that to maybe 22. You don't want to go too big.
Yeah, that's pretty big, but
and so that should be a bit better.
Yeah, that's enormous. But yeah, we can work with this right now. And all right.
And so Shazad has a question here.
Yep.
So if the default branch is changed after the action has been deployed, does the action automatically understand the change?
So this is a variable here that should just pull whatever the default branch is. So that should be fine. But honestly, if you are changing default branches, you really need to work on your processes. That should not be something that you really ever see happen. Unless, of course, we decide that main is a dirty word or something, and all of a sudden that changes. But all right.
So, but that pull request : do we have to configure something to say false or anything, or is it just left open like that? Or
nope. This basically is saying no configuration. So on pull request with no configuration.
But there's no like null or false. It's just left open.
It's just like open brackets in Terraform or open braces.
Oh, because you know what? Like, because YAML would turn to JSON, and so I bet it's valid to do this. But if you put 2 curlies after that and made it like a JSON object, then that's actually what it would produce out in YAML to JSON. So that's probably what it's doing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just white space. because YAML loves white space.
So it says, I missed the part with the workflow. Oh, sorry, I missed it. Oh, the message, sometimes the messages people are writing here and then they vanish and then they come back later on. But I think they might have missed where we created that workflow. So you know what? You still need to bump up the font a bit because the terminal font is also small, which is probably an option for that as well. But on the left-hand side, if folks can't see, we have a folder called .github, and we created a folder called workflows, right? And in there, we created a file called terraform.yaml. And we grabbed the code here on the right-hand side from a repo. If you're stuck that far, you'll have to probably go back and watch the video. It might be a bit too hard for us to show because we're struggling here with the font sizes. But anyway, let's just continue on here. Sorry.
Okay. So then after that, we've got some permissions here. Contents, read, basically, and this is great. You can actually see what everything is if you have the GitHub Actions extension installed. So this basically just says, okay, well, the GitHub action or the GitHub token that we're using, which again, your code space has a token ready to go. And of course, the token can also be passed to your workflow. In this case, it can just read. So it's not going to be writing things or breaking things or anything like that. It's just going to read the contents of your repository. So after that, we start with the jobs. And we're only using one job here. We're using Terraform. And you can name that whatever you need to. That is a logical identifier. Got a name, Terraform, runs on Ubuntu latest, environment is production. Now, this isn't necessarily required. I'm going to keep this here because it does help keep things logically containerized. You don't actually have to specify an environment, but when you do specify an environment, make sure that anything you create as far as secrets or anything else is created within the scope of that environment. So I will show you here. If I were to head to my settings for the repository I'm in, head down to secrets and variables, and then we've got actions. And I know this is kind of tough to see. Now, this environment hasn't been created yet, but it will whenever this is run. But you can see manage environment secrets. You can also create a repository secret. But if you want to keep things scoped and also be able to deploy to development and to other environments, this is how you can do that.
In my, and I don't remember if it's in the foundations of the GitHub Actions, but when I remember going through this, I was confused because when you have GitHub code spaces and some other services, it's almost like they share the same space. But if you're feeling confused because you've seen this, you're not sure the scope of it, just know that I covered in the material somewhere. If you're searching around secrets and variables, because I absolutely cover this more than once. And I figured out the answer, but I can't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, this catches somebody all the time. It definitely caught me off guard. I think and just looking through trying to find the answer, like a lot of people got kind of confused with the difference between environment, repository. You've got code spaces.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
GitHub doesn't know themselves. Because I was talking to them, like I talked to GitHub because when I was making the courses, because I was trying to make the courses better, and I asked them, they're like, I don't know, I don't know. So it's like whatever the engineers came up with, and so like I had to literally go and test and then observe and go make an educated wish that it. I just watched the Wolverine Deadpool movie, and they have a thing called an educated wish, but from that I was able to say, okay, this is what it is. But I don't really know, but I observe how it works, so it must be how it works, right? So anyway, I cover it somewhere in the videos there.
Yeah, so overall in the scope of what we're doing here, manage environment secrets. Again, this environment will be created when we run this, but you could also just create it by default here. And then you can add environment secrets, which are encrypted, and environment variables, which are not. So just like that. One of the great things about having an environment is you can just delete the whole thing. So if some of your stuff becomes exposed, you can just go in and literally delete the entire environment. And that will take everything that goes along with it. So that can be very helpful to get rid of things that somebody might have seen, maybe if you accidentally set your GitHub to public or whatever. So that's what that environment is. Feel free to use whatever you want there, but production is what comes with a lot of the templates. The other thing you do need to make sure you do, though, is if you do use an environment, that it is consistent. It does get added to every job that you create, because if you don't, those new jobs will not have access to those secrets. All right, after that, it's pretty straightforward here. Defaults run, the shell is bash. We're not going to bother experimenting with Mac OS or Windows. We don't actually care. So I'm actually going to clean that up.
I'd probably just take the whole comment out.
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah. Just like that. Pretty straightforward. Documentation is the code, right?
Well, I mean, you know, if you don't understand, you put your own docs there, then you'll remember them better, right? So you document for yourself or for your team, or use an LLM to generate it for you, because it's not like it's hard to get comments back if you don't know what they are. But I know, like with ChatGPT preview, I think you were showing it to me. Was it you?
I've got it. Yep.
The ChatGPT, the not preview, but the Canvas. You were showing it to me, I think. And that was really interesting how it would extrapolate the stuff. So I think for those, again, I don't think we need to really put too many comments in here. But anyway, let's continue on.
Yep. Yeah, so first, check out the repository to the GitHub Actions runner. I'm just going to leave that right now. But you can obviously delete that.
So for those who are or below a 5 here, what we've done is with that default run shell is saying, like, all the steps that are going to be here, they're going to run in the context of Bash and Linux, probably, because that's what Bash runs on. Each of these actions are actually a GitHub repository that are set up. So, like, check out @ version 4. We can probably pull up as a repo. Can you try to see if we can pull it up just to show them, like, it references somewhere? We're not going to get into like how these actions are built, but like if we just go to the right there, open up in GitHub.
Yeah, with the GitHub Actions extension, it looks like
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And so you go here, and if you scroll on down, it'll actually tell you how it's used, right? So if you're not sure what you're looking at, you can do this. I think in the course, I actually create a GitHub action in the GitHub Actions course.
That's awesome.
But, you know, like if you go through here, and so what did I have to do to get that installed? I had to have a certain extension, the GitHub.
Yeah.
extension?
So as soon as I
GitHub.
created the workflows directory and added this, it actually popped up asking me to install the extension. But it is this here, GitHub Actions.
I'm taking, and obviously the official one where it has the little seal of approval for GitHub.
Yeah.
So I have mine installed now as well, and I have it, and so I'm just going to hover over it. Yeah, and I can see if I click Control, I can open it up, and I have it opened up as well. Yeah, like on that page, like Derek didn't necessarily see it, but you can see like scenarios, and it'll tell you all these different scenarios where you might want to check out. If you go down a bit more for scenarios there.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that kind of helps you with the use case. And so you go, oh, if I'm working with multiple repos, whatever, because this action is all responsible for checkout. Now, you could write a bash script. Like, you can write a bash script and do it manually, but the idea is these actions are more robust, and they do a lot of stuff. But anyway, we can go back to our steps here.
Yeah, no, that was great. I'm glad you pointed that out. All right, so after that, install the latest version of Terraform CLI. Obviously, you're going to need Terraform installed. Now, in this case, it's using the Terraform API token, which we are not going to do. So we do not need this.
Because that's for Terraform Cloud.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing is that I have Terraform 1, so I'm assuming that you're Terraform 3 because you updated to the latest and the code I pulled was old.
What was that?
I'm on version 1, you're on version 3. So I'm assuming version 3 is obviously better, right?
Yeah. You definitely want to be on the latest.
So if we were to go through the, yeah, you already did it, to the
Oh yeah, I remember. I did change it. Yep, I changed it when we were comparing the AI version to the version here.
Now, that there are multiple different versions, I wonder if we could see what the differences are. So if you were to go back to the that setup Terraform there, and this is just to help people general knowledge, the place that I
Uh-huh.
would look at is releases on the right-hand side. So if you click on releases, they'll usually tell you what's changed. If you click on the, yeah. And so, again, it depends on how well they do their documentation. They might only
Hmm.
tell you the major updates on the major version, like 3000. But it's not like telling you a whole lot. So they're not doing the best of
This
writing it.
is
But,
this is actually a huge deal here.
oh yeah, tell me why.
Like the wrapper around the installed Terraform binary has been fixed to return the exact std out and std error from Terraform when executing commands. So the previous ones required all sorts of workarounds to process it, uh, and basically it just got dirty, is what it sounded like. Everything just
Mm.
got dirty. All the standard out was lame, and they fixed that. So yeah, it's pretty important, especially for consistency's sake, to upgrade as much as you can, and of course test those upgrades because things can very well break.
Can I get a +5 from the audience here if you are you got that GitHub Actions installed, that you're able to see this stuff, if you can kind of understand and see the documentation, because we need to be able to know that you can do that so you can configure these, because that's what's going to really help you when building out your pipelines. So just wait for some, I think plus, what did I say? Yeah, +5. Yeah.
Yep.
+1. Well, that's +1's all right.
It's in the
Better. It's
positives.
better than a 0 or a negative. So, okay, great. So we'll continue on here.
Okay, perfect. All right, then we get into the stuff that's pretty straightforward here. Terraform and init. Now again, you're running an init based on what you're checking out. Now that checkout is going to pull exactly what's in your repository. So what is in our repository? Well, you can see we've got our .github directory, we've got our CFN directory, Terraform directory, etc. But if I run a Terraform init right here in the root, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen because there are no Terraform files in the root. So just keep that in mind, and I need to go and research exactly where I did it to change directory. There are several different ways to do it.
You mean in the run script?
One way you can do it in the run script.
So
Change
for folks that are looking
equals.
here, notice where it says run. That's going to run in Bash, right? So think of opening up terminal and writing. It's going to write whatever you want there. And so there are ways you can change it. One thing that I like to do, and I think we did this more in Gitpod because we wrote a lot of YAML, like that configuration file. But if you want, you can do a multi-line there. So like where it says run colon, you could do run colon, and then put space, and then put a pipe. Yeah, and bring down another line that gives you a bit more room. And so there, if there was, it still have to be indented, I think, Derek. You can just go there, try it one more time, because like I'm just saying, like we could show. I'm not gonna tell people whether this is gonna work or not. They have to figure this out. But like you could indent that one there, and above it you could say like cd to the whatever directory that you're supposed to go to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it would execute the next line, I think, indented. Or as Derek's showing, there could be a flag to change the directory. I don't
Yep.
know. Maybe there is. Derek probably knows off the top of his head.
Yep, there
Um,
is. And this actually may not be the best possible way.
well, or,
I can't remember off the top of my head
well,
where I need to put it, but there is a way to change the directory for the entire set of steps for the entire job.
when you're working with build servers, I often will not hard code, but I'll use absolute paths. Sometimes build servers will also pass in environment variables that you can reference so that you don't have to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure in the GitHub Actions course, I talk about the build servers, and I actually probably look at like where are the, like what is the directory that it's in, and if there are envars. And so those are two things that might help folks out here that you'll want to investigate. I would go make notes of that, and like, okay, where does GitHub Actions store files? What would the absolute path look like? Is there an envar that can make it easier that we can string along here? Sorry.
Okay, no, that's great feedback there. Yeah, the Terraform dash chdir. If you, I can't remember if it shows up
I
right
thought it was
here.
Churder.
Churder? Is it Churder?
Churder.
Love it. So as you can see, this is a global option. So you can use this with any command. So you can actually pass this in to every single command after. So yeah, churder director equals directory, just like that. So this will make sure that all of those commands run in the correct directory. So if you were to do that, you can just add that to every one, which of course is kind of ugly and not really the way I would strongly recommend it. But I will find out exactly how to fix that here shortly. Now, another thing I like to do is, especially whenever I'm going through this workflow, test these things out if you can. You're going to waste a lot of time running pipelines if you don't test this stuff out. So, for instance, if I run Terraform dash chdir equals, actually, I've already run it. Let's take a look at this real quick. If I go back into terraform.tfrs, I'm just going to add a couple spaces right there.
For those that are in the crowd, did anybody? Because again, I don't remember, but because I work with so many cloud service providers, I kind of forget. But did anyone notice whether I was able to interactively get into the build server to debug things? Because that is something that you can do. Like for instance, if you're over on AWS or Azure and they have build servers, you can put breakpoints and then be able to shell in and then test the lines. And so sometimes like you could just have like a completely empty repo here, just have like the first command here, get in, and then run all these lines manually, make sure they work. And I use that a lot for debugging build servers. But yeah, if anyone noticed that, but that might be in the GitHub Actions course. I just can't recall. I was trying to look up here off screen, like, can you disrupt the workflow and get into it? And I have a feeling like you can.
Can you
So
do
I'm
that for a
seeing,
public one? I mean, obviously you can do it for a private one. I didn't know if you could do that for a public server.
well, I mean, it shouldn't be any different than something like with code build or other build servers. Usually it is functionality, but I'm seeing libraries for it. I just, again, I can't remember. I'd have to go audit my course and find out if I covered that. But that would be something that I would want to know because it's such a common workflow when working with build servers. But I guess the best thing is that, well, the other thing is that they might have containers that you can download, like for Docker, and then run in the same environment. So that might also be another option. So if they don't have an interactive server, then maybe you can download the same build and run it locally to debug it. So for folks that are listening, that might be two things you might want to investigate and put those on there because that will save you a lot of time. And you should investigate that and know whether you can do that or not.
Absolutely. No, it's very, very helpful to have access to things like that. But of course, whatever you can run locally beforehand obviously helps. Now, remember, I have made this modification here. This is one of the more annoying things. In fact, a lot of times I will comment out formatting and validating and things like that while testing things out just because it gets so annoying, because this will return an error status if anything comes up. So all it did was remove some spaces. That right there would break this entire pipeline. So keep that in mind. That's something that will drive you absolutely wild while you're debugging and testing things out. So it might help sometimes just to comment it out or to set up your pre-commit hooks to make sure that this runs beforehand, or you just check every now and then. So any one of those ways will help immensely reduce the amount of time you're spending. So then here, you've got a Terraform plan with input equals false. This is going to prevent any type of weird input that's required, like variable names, stuff like that. But generally speaking, if a variable is not specified, it's just going to fail whether you have input false or not. All right, now the fun part, Terraform apply. We're actually going to get into a little bit of a conversation here. So I'm going to go back here and take a look at this deploy real quick. As you can see, I'm not even bothering with the slideshow today. What we're mentioning is Terraform apply. And then why didn't we merge first? If you look back at this, this is basically applying as soon as you apply to the or push to the default branch. So this is an apply after merge. That's what's happening. So as soon as you merge the pull request, this is going to apply it. This is something that I've seen a lot of arguments for, but I've seen more arguments against. Andrew, can you explain at all why you might do one way or the other, apply before or after merge? Did you lose me? Are you muted? He's muted, so I guess for some reason he doesn't want to answer.
Sorry.
There he is.
Now I'm totally lost in my train of thought now. Sorry. So just help me out here again. What we were asking?
I gotcha. All right. So in this whole workflow here, the deploy step sometimes comes before or after the release, as in you'll have a PR open, you'll merge that PR and then deploy or, apply. And then some people will do it the other way. They will actually apply before and then merge once they've verified that the code is clean and working. Can you give any horror stories for one way or the other, or why you might do one way or the
sure.
other?
I mean, it really depends on how your company wants to work, right? So, and are we suggesting that there is a possible staging server, or it's just that people have a preference to roll it out either way?
Either.
Okay. I don't know. I would think that. I mean, I would never roll out changes without first merging them. I mean, that's how I would prefer to do it first, is to do it in that process. But there are workflows where you'll put it into, you will roll it out to a subsection, right? And then it will get tested, and then you'll decide whether to roll back on that or not. So I don't know. Are you kind of following my logic? I guess I'm kind of thinking more for code here.
Yeah. Yep. And that is kind of what I was hoping you would say in a way. So in infrastructure overall, a lot of people are going the opposite direction now, because a rollback in code is going to be a lot easier. You look at the diff, you fix it, and you can roll back that code if something happens. But if you actually roll out live infrastructure to your production environment after you've merged, having to roll all of that back can be a lot more complicated. So what I've seen is most larger companies and most people now are actually applying before the merge. They'll apply, verify everything, and then merge the code to main after.
But I guess the question is, why wouldn't you always just do that? It just seems like the other way just causes a lot of grief. But
so I don't know. There is a big argument out there about this. I see it all the time. In fact, I posted recently, someone else I know posted recently, and there are a lot of people who do it the other way, who want to merge before the apply. And I assume that means that their infrastructure is small enough. Hey, are you guys seeing my code, or are you seeing something else? Just to
no,
verify.
I see your code, but
Okay, good.
I guess the thing is that if you were to merge it first, if you had another step after it before you applied, then I could understand that.
Yep.
But if you don't, then why would you do that? Because, you know what I'm saying? Then it's harder to untangle the mess.
No, I completely agree. I think a lot of people justify it by saying that they want to make sure that it's the main branch is always the source of truth, no matter what, 100% of the time. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the source of truth is actually your environment.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Once
Yep.
once your environment is committed to being working correctly, then you commit it to your source of truth. Right?
Right.
Unless, again,
Yep.
unless you have another intermediate step and you're doing some thorough testing that you know before it's rolled out, because
Yep.
once it's deployed into production, that's very difficult to, like, if you
Yep.
had a staging environment, then I could understand that. If you don't, I don't know why you do that. But anyway, yep.
Perfect. Yep. So we're completely in agreement there.
Okay.
But you know who's not in agreement? This script.
Okay.
This script actually applies after you have merged to main. So that's something you'll need to keep in mind here. And basically what you'll want to do, of course, is you need to make sure that apply only happens on after the plan has been run, and only runs whenever you want it to. This can be done a number of ways. You'll see some people that actually hack it together to apply whenever they add a comment on a PR. So they might actually head to the PR and the comment apply. Now, there are some difficult little things around that make it kind of a pain because of the way that GitHub accesses information about that PR. It's actually not going to get all the information you want if you try to do it the most logical way. I'm just going to go ahead and warn you that it is a little bit of a pain. I will say that the way I've been doing it right now, just to make things easy, is I've been using the dispatch step. And let's go find that real quick. GitHub dispatch. Events that trigger workflows. So this is going to be something you're probably going to want to use to get things dialed in exactly the way you want. And let me find it. Dispatch. There's another one somewhere. Workflow dispatch.
Dispatch, yeah.
There you go. So workflow dispatch will actually allow you to run the apply manually. And I know the word manually is kind of a bad word, but you know, in infrastructure, a lot of times it's actually acceptable for the final deployment to be manual or to require some sort of approval or something like that. So the easiest way to ensure that there is some human intervention between the plan and the apply is just to create a job using workflow dispatch. And what this will allow you to do is to go into your actions. I'm just going to grab a random one and see.
And I'm pretty certain in my GitHub Actions course we cover this particular
Okay.
one for certain. So for those, if you don't know how to work with this, I'm almost certain that I have a lab on this. We definitely have lecture slides, but I'm certain that I have it pretty certain.
Oh, that's fantastic.
A lab
There you
for this,
go.
yeah.
So the answer is hanging out there for you. So basically within your actions, you'll be able to select the action you want, and you'll actually have the ability to run it from up here. There'll be a drop down for run, and I've got that somewhere, but sorry, don't have it up right now. So that's a way that you can manually trigger that apply and ensure that it's going to happen with some human intervention. There are several other ways you might want to do that, but that's probably going to be the easiest one, and that's one that will pass the grader. However, if you make comments working, if you make some other really cool workflow working, that's totally up to you. I'd love to see it, and I will be more than happy to share it with everybody and show how cool you are. So just keep that in mind. So for right now, what I'm going to do, since we don't have our state bucket set up and all of that, I'm going to comment out the apply. We're just not even going to mess with it. Actually, not even going to do that. I'm just going to delete it. I'm just going to delete the apply. So the goal of this is going to be to make sure that a plan works. And we're probably going to hand most of the rest of it off to you since we do have about 30 more minutes left.
I just noticed that HashiConf is in 2 days.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, HashiCorp runs 2 events. There's HashiTalks and then HashiConf. I think it's the 2. And
Yes.
the other thing I noticed is that it's in Boston. And so for those who've been to my other boot camps, we always have Chris, at least always on the first live stream, because he's our cloud therapist. And so he lives near Boston. He's like 1 hour from Boston, so I almost wonder like the reason why it's there is he's like, put it near me, because he just came back from Japan, right? He just came back from Japan and he's jet lagged, and so I wonder if he strategically made it in Boston so it was near his house. But that should be really interesting. Is there anything you're excited in terms of announcements, or is there any kind of predictions that you might be seeing, or are you tapped in at all with what's going on? Uh,
I'm exhausted from
you're excited
the
about the merger or the acquisition?
the nonstop, just everything around it. There's so much emotion. To be perfectly honest, I'm
because
pretty
of
exhausted.
the IBM buyout.
Everything. I mean, before that too, the Open Tofu split, the IBM buyout, all of that. I just want to build stuff. I wanna build my infrastructure. I want to kick stuff out the best possible way. And that's kind of a decent segue here. If you want to use Open Tofu, by all means use it. I think almost everything we do is going to be covered by Open Tofu. So that should be perfectly fine. And I would love to see you guys work with it and give me feedback on how well Open Tofu works. I know one of our sponsors is actually one of the maintainers of Open Tofu. They are great people, and I love what Open Tofu is doing. There's a lot of cool features, but I do wish everybody would just play nice so that we can have one nice standard way to build our infrastructure and it could continue working together. Um, but otherwise, yeah, there's nothing big coming out because everything is so Terraform Cloud focused now, all the announcements that, as far as building these things out yourself, I have a feeling a lot of the updates are not going to be a huge benefit to this workflow.
Well, I keep waiting for that Terraform professional certification that's been delayed for a long time, because that'll be my opportunity to get up to your level of Terraform. Um, but we'll have to patiently wait for that
Yeah.
for its release, assuming that it does not vanish with the large acquisition with IBM and HashiCorp.
Yeah.
Or HashiCorp. But we'll have to find out as we wait here. But it looks like we've walked through this pipeline.
hmm
And so, what are the next steps for students or boot campers, I should say? Sorry.
So the next steps, we've got this pipeline here.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say, even if you want, even before you authenticate, you can still verify that it runs. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep this push to default branch together right now because it does make things a lot easier. First thing I'm gonna do, and it's gonna fail. We know it's gonna fail. It's not authenticating to AWS. It's not authenticating to anything. I kind of want to just make sure that it works with the easiest,
Well, I
most
mean, I
simple
think it's just
stuff
if you
possible.
start running it, you're going to know what to do next, right? So
Yeah,
even though we know it's going to fail, let's run it and just figure out what next steps are.
yeah.
But
Error-led development, something. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think there's actually a name of it. It's like error-led development or something, where you just basically keep breaking it and fixing it based on the errors. So, yeah, let's go ahead and just add this. Commit-m Terraform workflow.
and today we are merging to main, and that's okay. We're
Yep.
pushing to main because we're
Yeah.
working a repo. And
We're,
yeah,
we're
everybody,
trying to
you
make things easy to
yeah,
start. As
folks,
easy as
if you want to
possible
do
to make
feature
sure it
branching, you
works.
can, but Derek's okay with just main pushes here, so we're focusing on GitHub Actions.
Yep. I'm going to gonna do a feature branch right before we end. I think it's gonna be the last thing. We're gonna have one more feature after this, and then we'll do that.
Derek, do you know of a good resource that documents the how to do the OIDC integration for
Yes,
our
I will
example?
share all of that, and I'll also create a video for that.
Okay.
Yep. I wanted to cover that so bad, but I knew the two of us would go on so many tangents. There's just no way we
Well,
could stay
and
focused enough to.
that one could really unravel, right? So
Yeah.
you might better have a very focused video on that one and just make sure because it's interesting, but it's not something that we want people to burning themselves on.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we've pushed the code. The workflow is definitely there. Got an action. No runs yet. What did I do wrong? You know, I bet this is weird. I actually haven't seen that originally there. I wonder if that's not playing nice. Because that's not how I normally see the variable.
Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, I usually see it like default branch or whatever. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and fight it forever. We're just gonna type in main.
Oh, that's what I would normally do, and I would have it more. I like anytime I have arrays, I like to have them underneath, but that's just because I really like my YAML.
What's that? Anytime you have what?
Oh, anytime it's an array, I like to nest it
Oh, I gotcha.
because I just really like my YAML nesting.
Oops, I almost said origin main there. Let's see, fixed branch name. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think I ever use the default branch variable. I would think I always just put in what
I
I want
haven't
it to
either,
be.
so which is weird because I've been doing this for several days now, and I don't remember that being there. They
I
may
just
have
didn't want to
made like an
question
update.
it.
Yeah, they may have made an update or something because that wasn't there before. There it goes. It works. All right, where do you guys think it's gonna fail? Failed to parse command
It's a bit
line
small,
flags.
just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I'll see if I can zoom in here.
Thanks, Daniel. And again, still trying to work on the setback here. So you know how I have like the nice,
I've got it.
the big paintings? They're not from my region, so I might try to get new paintings that are more regionally accurate for my area. But I haven't figured out what. If I had time, I'd just paint some myself, but I don't think I'll have the time, so I might have to elicit some help.
Well, you guys can see the error pretty simply, I think, right here. The fun thing about this little flag here is that it actually goes before the command, not after.
That's fun.
Very easy to transpose.
While we're there, did it tell us the path to where the working directory is? I'm kind of just curious if we scroll on down a bit into the logs there, just a little bit.
Actually,
You
it
already
should
have it
be
open.
here, right?
Okay, yeah. So
Or in checkout.
I meant like where the workspace directory is. So it says home, runners, work, git pod, minicamp
Oh, I gotcha.
2024. So, but anyway, I'm just seeing if we got any indicator there. But just like if we wanted a hard coded value, so we knew where
Yeah.
it was. Another thing that we could do is we could add a step where we just said print out working directory. Actually, might be interesting to see as a step, just so that we know where we are. But yeah,
Yep.
maybe I guess move the flag because of course you're going to have to do that.
And there is a way again to do this globally. I'm just doing this now to get things done as simply as possible.
I mean, would you set it as a global setting as a step before the other ones,
It's
or
it's in the job, I believe. I think it's like
Okay.
there's a variable that you specify, and I've got to go look in the code that I've already created to see it. All right, fixed transposed command.
the thing I really like about my I don't actually have my set 100% done, but now I have more coverage, and so I can get before you'd see like right away wall, but now it's like I have so much coverage that I can expand my set and not just be fixed in one spot. But I'm really excited to get my set complete. I just gotta get my new camera set up. You look a lot better than me, Derek, but I have a better camera and I just never get around to hooking it up.
This camera is pretty nice. It's like a Sony Z1 or ZV1 or something. I've got a really nice one, but it basically looks like it's just going to fall off the whole time. It's massive. So this one seems to do okay. It's got some issues, zooming and stuff like that, but like focus issues. But I have focus issues too, so I can't fault it.
Okay, so what's their problem now? No valid credentials were found.
Exactly
That
the
makes
one
sense.
I expected. Yep.
Okay.
So we're good. Up
So
to
sorry,
credentials.
where are we putting those? We just put them straight in text in our Terraform, right? We hard code them, right?
Yeah, just write in your Terraform. Oh my God, please, guys.
For,
If you,
for
if you
those
do
who,
that, that's an
for those
immediate
who,
fail.
I mean, sometimes people do that for testing, but like if you're doing those GitHub Actions, you really don't want to do that. But if you were to put your credentials in there, I'm not sure if it would happen, but GitHub does have the ability to detect credentials,
Yes.
and then they will tell you. I don't know if you have to turn it on. I can't remember. Again, this is my GitHub fundamentals course, but I know if you had AWS credentials and you hard code them in GitHub, AWS will find out because they scan repos and they will actually lock your account down, so you know. And then you have to remove a role and then tell AWS, I won't do that again. But it's for your own protection.
Yes.
So if you do make the mistake, just understand there are safeguards in place that GitHub can have and AWS can have, but that's not a foolproof guarantee. Okay. And then Luce is just asking what options we have: GitHub secrets, OIDC integration, things like that.
Yep, both are very valid. OIDC is the one that I absolutely prefer. Now, if this is the last thing you work on, that might be an idea. If this is something that is a little tougher for you to understand completely, you may do it last. Keep your GitHub repository private if you are not using dynamic keys like that. But otherwise, again, I'm going to create the instructions for the OIDC stuff because it is a little weird, and I think that's something that would benefit everyone. Now, what I'm going to do real quick, I'm actually in another window right now in my IAM page, and I'm going to create some keys real quick. Actually, what time is it? 1:38. Let's do that last. I'm not going to bother with that right now because that's something I think most of us do kind of understand, is how to create those keys, and then adding them as a secret is not too difficult. What I would rather do right now is let's add another job to this.
And when you say secret, do you mean in the GitHub secrets, like in code
Yes.
spaces?
Yep.
Okay.
GitHub secrets.
And
you can also do it with the GitHub CLI.
I was going to say there's CLI for, and I have a video for it, but I'm just playing dumb here. I know that it's there, but you use the CLI for that? Yep.
Yep. Yeah, you can. So you can use GH secret, and then you can set. You just need to make sure that you are setting it for the right environment.
And Tony's pointing, explaining as to why I know. Like, I just explained why I know because it happened to me during the boot camp. My account got locked down, and AWS is like, "Hey, you're leaking you're putting your hard coding values," and I was like, "Whoops!" But yeah. I think in GitHub, though, you have to turn it on to tell it to watch for secrets. I think it's like free or it's low cost. But if you go to your repo settings and go to security, there's a checkbox for that, I think.
Oh, do you have to? Because
I think so. Can
when
we just
I
take
did
a quick
it many
look here?
years ago, I didn't have to set it.
Or maybe it's like
It
extended
definitely
features.
told me.
But if it'll just take 2 seconds to take a look
Yep.
here. If you go to settings, they also have a security tab. It's confusing because they'll have it's not that confusing, but they have it on both. And so if you scroll down there, there might be one for watching for secrets. Is there? You might need to.
And this is a Dependabot feature.
I can't really see really well your screen, so I'm just kind of guessing. But if you keep scrolling down.
I can't go any further. That's it.
Okay, go to the security tab at the top.
Okay.
And there it is, code scanning alerts. Oh.
Have to be an organization. That's
Maybe it's
interesting.
a policy. No, I don't know. I don't remember you have to be an enterprise for it.
I've definitely been yelled at for it, but it may not have been GitHub that did it. It may have been. I think it actually might have been a third party.
Well, it's in the course somewhere, but secret scanning is a feature that detects and prevents accidental stuff. How it works. Secret scanning alerts. Enable it for your repository. You go to settings. Yeah, you go to the settings tab.
Okay.
That's what I thought. And then it might be under, so you just see it says secrets and variables. Maybe it's not under code security. Go under, there's 2 other things on the left-hand side. It says in the security, there's a code security analysis tab. I don't see that. Do you see that? If you go on the left-hand side? Their docs don't match. Drop down secrets and variables. It looks like there's an expansion there.
Could it be under Dependabot? No, I mean that's just Dependabot's secrets that it needs to
But
get.
I'm not lying here. If you go here, someone's saying, "Is your repo public?" Oh, it has to be a public repo. That's why
There it is. Yeah, so
okay.
a lot of
That's what
GitHub's
it is.
stuff like that will work for public repos and organizations, but not
I
for
think
private.
that's the thing is if it's not public, then they want you to pay for that functionality at the org level
Yeah, correct.
or
So,
enterprise level. It's org or enterprise level. Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually doing this whole thing in. I did not convert mine to an org account just so that I could demo everything as close to what you're going to see as possible, and this is why. So, yep. So keep that in mind. So the next thing, let's see about adding maybe some TF-lint to this. Let's see how that would work and how that would treat us. So under jobs, let me go ahead and I'm going to do something off screen real quick. Just make sure I find the right thing. TF-lint GitHub action. There we go. Yep, there we go. Okay, I will move it over. So here we have the TF-lint GitHub action. This is basically exactly how I set it up for the first time. I just went right to the docs here.
Is this one official or is it just community made?
This one here is under Marketplace Actions, TF-lint. Actually, I think this is the one.
So folks, some of them are like they can be authored by the creators or they could be just by anybody. But
yeah, let me check real quick. Which one?
I would just say like you don't have to use a GitHub Actions to do this. You could just use a run command if you wanted to, but you could also use this. It just depends on what will give you more robustness or you know, if you find that an action is abstracting too much and you don't know what moving parts there are, then you might want to just use a run command. But that's just some considerations when looking at these things when you're doing that. But that's what I would look at as like, okay, who made it? Is it official to the sense of the production? I would open it up and just see how it's working because sometimes these things are really simple. You don't even need them.
I know which one I use now.
Is there more than one here?
I actually use Terraform-linters. Yeah, so this one...
Zingy was saying it is the official one that I assume the last one we were looking at, but we can take a look at this one as well. I don't know. I'm just saying like...
This one... So, yeah, Terraform-linters is actually maintained by some pretty solid people here.
And that's the other thing is like if you recognize them, right? So...
Yeah.
Some of these spaces we see the same people over and over again. So
I thought this was the one. There was one I thought that Anton did also.
Well, I was gonna say that's who I was looking for. Was like, where's Anton?
Yeah, I know. I thought he had one actually.
Derek's Mr. Terraform, and Anton is Terraform Caesar. I don't know.
Yeah, so kind of interesting. I totally thought that I had a better, more official one. Let's see if there is an official one.
No, this new one Derek is on is the official one. So it was the newer one that the later one you're looking at is the official one. So that's what Zingy is suggesting here. So possibly that's the case.
Let's take a look.
And this is a Terraform action, or sorry, a GitHub action.
This is not.
It's just small, so I can't exactly see.
Yeah.
And so, because normally they'll follow a particular pattern from my memory from when I last did this, and I'm not seeing that pattern. So scroll down a little bit. It's more like those loose files I can usually tell. But this doesn't look like a GitHub action. It just looks like it's Terraform lint.
No, this is not the GitHub action.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the link to it. So I have it. I just want to see where I got it from, and I usually note all of this stuff, but for some reason, there is a link on
this page to that action. You might have read that, yeah. Did you saw the comment or?
Yeah, I saw the comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Nice.
There we go. Setup dash tflint.
And folks, just so you know, we have less than 15 minutes here. So whatever wherever we end up is where we're going to wrap up here, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But we'll just continue on a bit more. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah,
our
this is
flow
the
here.
one here that I definitely used. It has a couple things we're not going to need, but this is the one I used. So we're going to make this super simple. I'm just going to add it in as a job here. I believe, let me check, make sure that's what I did before. Yep. Oh man, we might be zoomed in a little too much here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to create a new YAML, I think.
I really want to watch there's a new show called Dan to Dan, and it just keeps showing up in my YouTube, people watching it. But I don't have Netflix right now, so I can't even watch it. But
all right, so we don't need jobs again.
it's about these two high schoolers. One believes in ghosts but not in aliens, and then one believes in aliens but not ghosts. And then they set out to prove each other wrong. And it turns out both aliens and ghosts exist.
That sounds awesome.
In my town, people are always concerned about aliens and ghosts here, and I'm not kidding. I actually have a little alien cutout on my. There's a person in the town over. They make these alien cutouts, and so when I first moved here, I would see alien cutouts in like every window and on doors, and I'm like, what is going on here? And there'd be like little signs in the stores like, if you've seen aliens, call this number.
All right, almost there. I'm trying to just get this right thing here. Yeah, if we get too close, we may not get to add this extra linter. I would love to, but we're starting to push it a little close, so this might actually be an extra video.
There might be a ghost in my church because was reverend or pastor, because it was a Presbyterian church, but there's a town nearby called Jackfish, and so at the time the only way to get around, this is like 1920 or something, I can't remember, but the point was that the highway wasn't done, and so the way you got around was like canoeing and boats and things like that. And so I think it was like eight hours travel, or it was a ridiculous amount of time to get to Jackfish Describer. And he was canoeing back, and as he was canoeing, he got caught in weather, and he was struck by lightning and killed. And so in the church there was this giant plaque that described that. But it's not a good sign when your pastor or your reverend is struck down by lightning. But anyway, the plaque went into the train museum, which is very interesting. So,
Yeah, now I can't zoom in. This is great.
So, all right, how's that linter going? Good?
I've got the code. I'm trying to get it added in here, and with the font size and everything else, it's just kind of ugly.
I like how Shazad has the it's the aliens from not Sesame Street, from the Muppet Show. I can't remember. Was that from the Muppet Show or Sesame Street? But it's the best. I think I saw someone like for Halloween, they dressed up as those puppet aliens. It was like the best costume I've ever seen. The Muppet Show. There you go.
All right, so we've got the linter right here. And this again was copied right from here. And we got some things we're going to need to change. So as you can see, setup dash tflint, that's great. But there are a couple things, such as branch is master. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers the controversy a long time ago, but for the most part, we're not going to argue about it. Please don't start arguing about it. I don't want to hear your opinions. But right now, pretty much nobody uses master. So I'm going to change that branch to main, obviously. And then for jobs, tflint runs on matrix-os. This is to test on multiple OSs. That's not required. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time bothering with that right now, but you may want to clean that up a little bit. I'm just going to choose Ubuntu latest right here. So there's a
Yeah.
little more overhead, but
I'm
not
just
a big
trying to
deal.
remember. I think I covered this in my course, but I think the matrix is when you want to test against multiple environments.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
So
So
it's just going
as
to
you can
iterate through
see,
those. Yeah.
yeah, it's got Windows and Mac OS. We don't care about those. We're adults. We are running our Terraform on Ubuntu.
It's really interesting. Well, like the Mac OS one's interesting because Mac OS doesn't have servers anymore. They used to make servers,
Yeah.
and the
Yep.
only servers now are the ones that AWS will buy
Yep.
mini Macs, and you can do them up. But I guess that would be if you would be building out apps, right? If you'd be building out apps specifically for Mac OS, that's why they have that environment in there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So after that, looking pretty good here. Show version. We got a tflint version, all of that. We then got a github.token. That is fine. You may want to read this. I'm not too concerned about it right now. We're not going to be running it much. This looks like it has something to do with avoiding rate limiting, but I've been beating this thing to death, and I don't think I'm getting any issues. Run tflint, tflint-f compact. So the big issue here, of course, is that that is not running against the right directory, which is so annoying. So what I'm going to do, and this is, I finally found it. This is where we're going to set the working directory globally. So under the jobs, tflint runs on. That's all fine. We're going to set a default. Defaults, run, and then we can set working directory here. And just set that to Terraform. So that should run tflint on our Terraform directory. And yes, this is a new YAML file. I was going to try to add it just within the terraform.yaml, but that was not working out well due to the font size and trying to add YAML into that. So tflint.yml. And then this will run it basically as two different jobs.
But do we want it as a single job so it steps through each step?
This will work pretty well, but as you go through this, you might want to set up certain types of dependencies and things like that. But
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is like when you have a workflow, you're like, I want this to happen in this particular order.
Yeah.
And so these are now running in isolate. And so our boot camper is supposed to merge it into one pipeline later on. We're just doing this out of convenience right now.
It honestly, it depends on whether that step really matters or not. As far as its order, some of these will matter in order, some of these will not. It really doesn't matter what order tflint happens, at least not.
But I guess what I'm saying is like,
Specifically.
imagine tflint fails, but then the deploy continues on, then it will eventually fail. Wouldn't we want it as a hard stop?
What you can do is look at all the checks, and if any of the checks fail, we can prevent it from deploying. Because right now we're not going to apply unless there's a manual step between it.
And if we deploy, so I believe that Shannon is asking about like the parallelism or things like that, but both of these will run because it's based on the on step. So if they're both on branch main, as soon as something hits branch main, when it's on push, they're both going to run, and they're not necessarily running in, like they are running in parallel, but they're not, both of them won't finish at the same time, right? They'll finish at their own time, and they're completely independent at this point. Could you orchestrate them to work together? I can't remember. I kind of feel like
can.
GitHub would have that. Is
Yep.
that you could make it so that they both have to pass for whatever reason, but I almost feel like that would have a roll up into the other one. But anyway, sorry. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it depends on. That's what Ariana is putting there. Is there might be
Yes.
the depends on option? Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Let me go ahead, and we're going to commit this to main first, but then we're actually going to run a pull request after that, because I want to make sure everybody does see that. So, and the reason I'm pushing it to main first to make sure is I don't think we're going to have too many issues here right now with the few steps that we have, but you do want to make sure that any changes that you make for your workflows do end up on main. There are actually certain things that have to be committed to main to even work from a workflow, so keep that in mind.
And as Zingy was saying, it was needs. I like the reason I can't remember is because CloudFormation is called depends on, and so it's very easy for me to mix up the two. I just have too many ISC tools in my head. But the point is there is an option for dependencies between them. So
Yes.
but I can't remember if that's within actions within a single workflow. We're talking about external workflows, but that's something that we can. That if there's confusion, we can just cover that in future videos here or support it in the chat. We literally have only 3 more minutes, so I think what we should do is, you're out of time, Derek. Let's talk about next steps. So we are going to have an office hours after class Q&A as per usual here over in the Discord as soon as we're wrapped up here. I want to know, what are we expecting to get after this video? Are you going to be bringing us any other videos around this? I know I know pretty certain that you're going to give us a video to set up the state file or the state management on S3 and DynamoDB. So we have that. What else is there?
So one thing we do definitely need to cover is the grading rubric. I was hoping to do that live, but we did get kind of sidetracked. It happens. So I'm going to try to get that rubric done very, very, very soon, hopefully by tomorrow. And we'll have a grading rubric out there. And then, so we've got the back end, the DynamoDB and S3. I'm also going to help cover the OIDC, that setup, and your authentication. I want to make sure that I help you with that because it is a little bit of a pain, and it's standard. There are a lot of gotchas and things like that. And also, this is something that's so important to get right. I just want to try to help make sure that you're all good for success. And then other than that, we'll kind of keep an eye on things and see how things go. There will be some ad hoc videos possibly created. If
do
there's
you think we might need to get? I just want to be sure. Does everybody here is it clear what you need to do yourself besides the S3? Like, do you know what you're doing? Like that you're building on a pipeline, and based on our call from last week, do people remember the scope of that technical diagram? Just give me a certainty if you know exactly what's going on. Give me a plus 100 if you are fuzzy and you want more clarification. Give me a negative 100 just so we have an idea.
Yeah. A lot will be covered up once I release the rubric. That's something, again, I hope to get to.
Well, and we can talk about the rubric here in the after class Q&A. I think we're very comfortable talking about that off stream here.
Yep.
But just want to make sure, because we can always make adjustments here to meet everybody's needs, so that it's clear. But I'm seeing a few plus 100s. So if I don't see any negatives, I'm going to assume that everybody is on the same page here. Plus 99. David is close to 100. So David, I'm expecting one question from you and ask Q&A to get you to 100 here. I'm seeing another plus 100. So we are in good shape. Negative 50 because I missed the first 45 minutes of this lecture. That is fair enough.
Yep. And I also wanted to call attention to the fact that TF-lint did work first try. Yes, we nailed it.
Oh, nice.
So, yep.
Great.
So TF-lint required version attribute is required. Region has no type. Instant type has no type. Keep that stuff in mind. It's going to drive you crazy. So
all right. Let's hop over to after class Q&A, and we'll see you all there very shortly.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll see you there.